The slow start to the season for North Carolina basketball obviously has a negative impact on the current crop of Tar Heels. But what effects negatively might it have in the recruiting game?
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Thursday, December 8th, 2022. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast. We're the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and I want to thank you for making us your first listener watch to get your team every single day. Today, we've got a big recruiting show. We're talking with Jason Jordan, our guy. Got some insight about how the game works a little bit, and then we're going to look at a specific recruit, Isiah Harwell. Let's get right into it. We are joined today by our Locked On College Basketball recruiting insider, Mr. Jason Jordan, and all our college basketball recruiting segments are brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So, folks, what we want to do, we've got a recruit we want to talk about later in the show, Mr. Isiah Harwell. How often do we get to talk about somebody from Idaho and Utah? Man, that's going to be awesome, Jason. But before we get to him, what I want to do is start by looking at how Carolina's early season struggles, how and if that type of thing affects recruiting, and look at the short and long-term ramifications of that. So Carolina, for those who aren't aware, I mean, if you're watching the show, you're probably highly aware, is off to a 5-4 start, including a 4-game losing streak right now, having fallen out of the AP poll, the earliest AP preseason number 1 to ever do so. So Jason, my question to you is this. How much are high school recruits paying attention to what the current team is doing?
They are definitely paying attention a lot, because everybody's watching a lot, especially early on. They watch a lot of the early. I mean, this is where this could backfire on Carolina. So it's the gift and the curse to have all the hype in the world to come off. Most people thought they should have won the national title last year. So conventional wisdom says they're bringing all the big dogs back, except for Brady Manek, which we see is a big piece. But then
trying to say it, Jason. Been trying to tell the people.
Fans say, but this is how fans think, and they're like, okay, we lost Brady, but we got Nance, so same thing, right? It's like, well, it doesn't work like that. Maybe eventually, right? But that you got to
differently.
Yeah, you got to stew a little bit. You got to that has to gel and things like that. It got to marinate. And so I think that's what they're seeing now. I think they're going to be okay. But do they watch? Absolutely, because everybody's like, Carolina's going to the Final Four. Carolina's going to. I said it. I mean, they still have the talent to, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they are absolutely watching now. And here's the thing with high school kids. The effect is a lot. It's largely predicated on freshmen and guys that they just played with in the summer and spring, and not when you're getting 2 and 3 years removed. It's not as big, because those guys lose touch.
Yep.
But if I just played against you 3 months ago in EYBL, a little bit different. So those guys like Seth and Tyler Nickel and Jalen Washington hadn't played in a while, but it looks at that's how they look at it. Because then they can text their friends like, yo, what's up? How is it there? And this is the type of stuff that happens. So that's where it could hurt some recruiting. And I don't think it would hurt with your class, like,
sure. But like in terms of decommits, is that what you mean?
Correct. Right. Because, you got to look at it. These recruits are like, in a good way, they're like egomaniacs. They're like, yeah, they just needed me.
That's right.
That's what they needed, me, baby. And so, but I think if it continues, you run the risk of losing the locker room. And you don't want to lose the locker room, because I can tell you that in the recruiting process, coaches can't be with the kids all the time. I know sometimes a team, and I'm going to say a team.
Sure, that's great.
Lost the locker room, but they had a big time kid on campus, and they knew that they lost the locker room. So they were trying to organize a schedule around not having the kid around just the team, because they knew that they had to get this kid on, because he was like, yeah, I'm ready to visit. What's up? And they're like, yeah, come on. And so, but, you can't stop, the kids from interacting. And so it went bad. Like, when the coaches weren't around, they were like, yo, man, I'm telling you, don't come here. Because, this, that. And, when you're losing, it's hard to stay mentally strong and stay focused on the ultimate goal, because you need success. You need some success. And when there's a consistent failure, not to say for the season, but a loss is a failure, right? So when the worst thing you can do to a high-level athlete is for him to lose, right? Especially with all the expectations in Chapel Hill. So, I mean, they've lost 4. So, like, everybody's panic mode. You think fans are panic mode. Players are like, yo, they got to search everywhere. What is it? And is it me? And is it coaches? Is it? So that's the biggest impact it would have, is the players losing faith in the staff, and losing faith in the goal, and having the tunnel vision to block things out, and, overcome the emotion of losing, because that's a real thing.
Yeah. And I mean, is it the type of thing that other coaches would use negatively in recruiting, to say, hey, listen, we're you're coming in to visit us. We're having a great start. We're ranked top 15, undefeated right now, but look what's going on in Chapel Hill, man. Things aren't going so well for Hubert, just kind of like last year at the beginning. Yeah.
No, not overtly. Right. Okay. Like, they're not going to, they'll do it, but in a roundabout, pokey kind of way, like, because they know, hey, every dog has a day. It's just December, exactly. And so, but they probably would, I know if it were that, depends on how far along it's progressed, and they'll be like, oh, you really got to look at how they're using so-and-so, or how they're not even using so-and-so, something like that. They don't play freshmen, clearly, right? Look at the net here, the minutes right here, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, they will. But I think most coaches take that. I mean, so let's say Carolina. Most coaches would take this approach. I mean, they started preseason, and they're out. I mean, I don't have to say anything. It speaks for itself. That's what they'll do. The nice, nasty kind of thing to do, right? Because they try and stay a little bit classy, but then they're petty too. So
everybody's trying to find their way in it. Another angle on this that I want to talk with Jason about is, with things not going well, does that breed potential for some of these guys to stay and improve their draft stock potentially next year? Because there's all sorts of possibilities outside of Pete Nance and Leaky Black. But then also, how does that affect recruiting and playing time on the court? We'll tell you more about that in just a second. But first, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, so that's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. It's incredibly easy to create a free job post, so why not give it a try? Add your job and the purple #hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. And then simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skill sets and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and ultimately hire. You want to finish the year strong, and the right new hire can help you do just that. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, Jason, here's the second part of this is, sometimes when you have all these big expectations, and I know nobody on the current Carolina roster is flying up into the lottery or anything. But a beginning to a season like this certainly doesn't help your draft stock. Right. Now, I know we've talked a lot about, obviously, as I just said a second ago, Pete Nance and Leaky Black will have exhausted their eligibility after this season, but Armando Bacot could take advantage of a COVID year. Caleb Love, RJ Davis, our junior, you've got all of this kind of thing. Is there a world in which the slow start to the season, if it continues in this way, causes some of these guys to look at coming back? And if so, how does that then affect recruiting? Because you've got these other two guys already coming in, signed in Simeon Wilcher and Zayden High, and then you start looking at transfer portal and all that kind of stuff. So how does that angle play into this?
So different. So two parts there. So if it continues the way it's going now and they underachieve to the point of, let's just call it the worst case scenario, they underachieve to the point where they don't make the tournament.
Yep.
Right. Somebody's leaving. I mean, you talk about coming back. If they don't make the tournament, I think they'll make the tournament, be clear. But let's just go worst case, right? It sounds good to say, oh man, the draft stock won't be great. So clearly they're going to want to do it again, and they're going to be like, yeah, we learned our lesson. Now we're ready. Nah, that's a good for a movie script.
That's right.
But, nah, man. These guys they have egos, and they play the blame game, and if they don't make the tournament, the blame game is going to be in full effect. And it's not going to be them. They're not going to be whoever it is thinking it ain't me. And so I think retaining everybody, even if they should, I think the transfer portal is going to grab a couple Tar Heels if that's the case. Now, if it keeps going the way it is, they better all come back. They better all come back. And the thing is, if they come back, I think they could be strong. And but it's got to be like a chemistry thing and stuff like that. The thing that makes me feel like, yeah, that's a real possibility is because we live in a new world now where NIL is getting you this money. So you could go, to your point, nobody's knocking on the lottery as it stands, right? So you could go and be a journeyman in the G League, or you can go and be a rock star in Chapel Hill and pull in good money, probably the same money, if not more.
Yeah.
As a junior, senior. So in Mondo's case, super senior.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that, stack your money. Now you can say stack your money in college. So nothing is crazy at this point. And, we got a long season ahead. I don't want to throw them under.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're
getting way ahead of ourselves.
Confident in that they'll get it right. I think Hubert Davis is an amazing coach.
Yep, agreed.
And we're really going to find out how he's able to motivate players. And this is good. This is good for him, for you guys in the long run as a coach, because he needs this kind of stuff. All young coaches do, and they're all going to go through it. So this is, what's the Drake line? Ooh, I needed that. So I think that'll end up being the case. In Chapel.
Yes, absolutely. And to your point, Jason, I mean, goodness, as recently as 2-3 years ago, if guys, you still would see them, like, even if the team underperforms, like, think about a Ben Simmons. LSU didn't even make the tournament his 1 year in Baton Rouge, and he's still gone. This day and age, it's not that they're gone to the draft. It's that, like, hey, we were bad or miserable as a team, so I'm leaving to go to a different school where there's better opportunity, not for me to perform better because I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing, but maybe win more. And so, as you said, it's the unknowns of everything. Are like, I don't know how to be a Division I head coach right now. Like, that seems miserable to me, and I get why Jay Wright, Coach K, and Roy Williams are all out of the game now. Absolutely.
Yeah, the dinosaurs had to go. They can't put up with these egos, boss. The thing is, to your point, that 1 year transfer waiver, it's like, I can go get on a national title contender and be like the missing piece. Like, oh, you guys need a point guard? Well, you know what I do. Like, case in point, you take a guy like RJ Davis, who, I mean, I think anybody who watches Carolina would see that RJ Davis you got to imagine, a part of him must wonder what it would be like to have the keys, and not fight for the keys.
That's right.
So, I mean, I could sell that pretty easy. If I got a national title contender, all I need is a playmaking point guard.
That's right.
Man, this might be a layup. You know what I'm saying? Let me get him on campus. He's mine. Yeah. So you have to look at it like that. Because it's a new day. It's a new day. When we ain't got to sit out no more. Oh man, I mean, everything's up for grabs now.
Yeah, I mean, to make that specific case, you start looking at, if you're let's just project out ahead. Let's say Caleb's gone, but you've got Seth Trimble and Simeon. Wilcher's coming in, as you and I've talked about quite a bit. That man ain't sitting on the bench. He's going to be playing. And so what if RJ looks at that and says, I really miss being up back in New York, or maybe, whatever it is. And there's a whole bunch of teams out there that are a dynamic point guard away from what you just said, a national championship. And while you want this young man to be loyal to your team, the chances of him getting out and going, not because he's not loyal to you, but because it's like, I'm going to get the keys here. Yeah. That is a very real world thing that we're looking at right now. And I'm guessing you have examples that you've seen and heard of that exact thing happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, stuff, I'm not saying with Carolina, but stuff doesn't start in the spring. Let's just put it like that. Like, these conversations don't start in the spring. So that, the back channel is the best channel, on any TV. And those conversations start a lot earlier than you think. But for them, they definitely, Georgia Tech and then the Citadel before they play Ohio State, they need some success. And you'd be surprised what one good, we're clicking on all cylinders type game can do. It can just be one, no matter who it's against. Yeah. It can be one game where, the perspectives can change in the locker room. And I think that's what they need.
Yeah. And I think, to your point specifically about Carolina's on-court production, part of this, it's the logistics of this 4-game losing streak. It's a snowball that's just kept rolling, and they've not really been home to practice or get stuff right. And like you said, they're home now. You got Georgia Tech, and then the Citadel, who's the worst team on paper on your schedule. Big opportunity for some get right heading into Ohio State and Michigan. By the way, a game at MSG, you're not going to get up for that for Ohio State. So we'll have to wait and see if Mr. Armando Bacot is on the court for those games. That'll make a big difference in how it's going. Now, folks, listen, it might sound a little bit crazy to talk about recruiting a sophomore in high school right now, but that is the lay of the land. That's what we do in this day and age. But how often do we get to talk about an elite recruit coming out of the Ohio-Utah area? Well, that's exactly what Jason and I are just about to do. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline, which is your #1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer, even though America's out of the World Cup, and esports, they've got it all at BetOnline. So make sure you check out the lines for Saturday's upcoming game, as we just talked about, against Georgia Tech, and see what you got there for the Tar Heels. It's always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about all the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, Jason, we're going to head west in the country a little bit for, as I said, a sophomore, a high elite level shooting guard, Mr. Isiah Harwell. And this is, hand up, I've not actually seen him play as of yet, but from everything I've read, just had a great showing at the Holiday Hoops Giving. Would you just tell us a little bit about Isiah, some of what he's been able to do well so far in his first couple of years of high school?
Yeah, dynamic athlete, 6'5", can play both wing positions, knocks down the perimeter shot pretty efficiently, thrives as a playmaker, but just he's a mentality guy, meaning he's going to get by you on the perimeter, and he's going to be able to create his own shot. And he's one of those guys that is confident to the point of feeling like he's the best player on the court at all times, no matter who's on the court, which, it's well documented. That is one of the biggest things I look for when we're talking elite players. So I love that, even at a young age. And so, he's a 3-level scorer efficiently, but just mentality wise, I think that's what probably sets him apart, certainly in his class in 2025, which is loaded with the Boozer twins and Cooper Flagg, and a couple other guys, but he's definitely one of the best perimeter players in that class for sure.
Man. And that one of the things that I've read about him is about Harwell is that he refers to himself, not only as you talked about this 3-level scoring capability, but as a two-way player who wants that defensive challenge on that side of the ball. How many sophomores are you seeing? And you see a lot of dudes out there doing what you do with that level of what I'll call basketball awareness to recognize, hey, it's not just about me pouring it in on the offensive end, but I can impact this game equally as much by stopping my guy on the other end. How is that a rare thing, or is that something you see with any level of regularity?
No. That's completely, especially for a younger guy. I mean, you don't see seniors say that because, that's where they rest on defense, right? But yeah, definitely a guy who can pick up 94 feet, and definitely a guy who brings it on the defensive end. And, with his makeup, and super agile, super quick, covers, he's long too. So he's 6'5", but his wingspan has got to be, I don't know it for sure, but I'd imagine it's in the 6'9" to 6'10" range. So he's covering, a lot of space. And so he's quick enough to say step for step with point guards. So you do the math on that, and you can understand why, he's so confident as a two-way player in that class. He played for the Utah Prospects in the Adidas 3SSB, and he always took the assignment of the top guard on the other team. So he was that guy. Come from the Kobe cloth. These guys study the greats, and they know that guys like Kobe, when he was on the USA Basketball team, they would take the assignment of being they wanted to guard the best guard on the other team. They look at these YouTube clips, and a lot of them talk about stuff like that. Now he's one that actually verbalizes it. And so, that's just a testament to him. And, you'll see how that that type of stuff projects futuristically because he's really that good on the offensive end. And when he's bringing it on the defensive end, he definitely could be. It's early, but he's definitely in the running to be potentially the best two-way player in that class.
Interesting. And you brought up the very next point I wanted to go to. Way to make my segue for me there, Jason, is I know barring a reclass, he's still 3 years away from stepping foot on a college basketball court to play. What sort of things are there for people that are listening or watching? They're like, dude, come on. He's a sophomore in high school. What are those projectables you usually look for, even at this young age? That's like, no. This translates even at 15 to what he'll be at 18.
Right. Well, first it's mentality. So you bringing up that he wants to, he wants to get after it on the defensive end. That's something that is certainly going to bode well for him from the mentality standpoint. The other things, logistically, he's 6'5". With a 6'9", 6'10" wingspan. He shoots, I don't know the exact numbers from what he shot in the Adidas 3SSB, but I think it was north of 40% from the 3-point line. And we're talking, there's EYBL. For those that don't know, in the spring and summer, Nike EYBL is the king. There's no way around it. Sorry, Adidas and Under Armour. But Adidas is second. Adidas is second. So there's a lot of talent on the Adidas 3SSB. And so he was one of the top players on that circuit. And we're talking junior, senior, everybody, all classes. So, to be able to play interchangeable at different positions and guard 4 positions, potentially 5, depending on the lineup, just means he can play interchangeably on both ends of the floor. And so those are the things that will always translate and project futuristically.
Interesting. Okay. That's great. That's so helpful for helping process those kind of things. Now, speaking of the Adidas side of things, obviously we know North Carolina is a Jumpman school. Right. We often hear a lot about these Adidas kids are going to be directed to Adidas schools and same with Nike. Very, various things like that. And so, you know, like Adidas, you think Adidas, I think Kansas. Like, all right, he's going to be a Jayhawk, you know? And I think people talk about that. Is that overblown too much, or is that a real thing that would stop a young man from going to a certain school?
Yeah, I think it's more real toward the end of their, you know, high school careers and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it especially, you know, in the 11th hour, you see the list, and like you can take DJ Wagner, and you know, he had some Adidas schools and he had Nike schools, and so then you saw he was signing deals with some Nike NIL stuff, and so the arrow started to point a little bit more.
A little more to Lexington than Louisville.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, that is a real thing. And, you know, then the reality is, you know, then they start conversations, more people get in your ear on that side to talk about the benefits of staying in the family. And so, yeah, that's what that does. It means more people are talking to you about staying on brand. And those are big conversations, especially in this era of NIL.
Yes, sir. Indeed. Boy, it's so great, but it brings with it its own crazy mix of complications. Yeah. Jason Jordan, as always, great stuff, great insight on Isiah Harwell, and then on all these inner workings, as well as how on-court success affects the recruiting game. Really appreciate your time, as always. So grateful for you.
Absolutely, man. Look forward to coming back.
Thanks, as always, to Jason Jordan for joining us. Man, I'm just so grateful for the great content he brings every time he is on. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to preview Carolina's second ACC matchup against Georgia Tech, trying to snap this 4-game losing streak. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Heels. Follow Jason at Jason Jordan SI, and you can follow me at Isaac Schade. You can email the show. Would love to chat with you more in depth if you want to. LockedOnTarHeels@gmail.com. For your next listen of the day, why don't you check out Locked On Sports Today? The biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and of course, the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and anywhere else you get podcasts. If you would love you to subscribe, smash the like button, leave some comments on your thoughts on Isiah Harwell, if you've seen him play, or any of the other recruiting conversations we had today. Hey, thanks so much for spending your Thursday hanging out with me, hanging out with Jason. Folks, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel, isn't it? Hey, until tomorrow, peace.